It's 5:30. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. So we do roll call.
Mike Foster.
Here.
John Shalak. Miles Hoffman.
Here.
James Lester.
Here.
Lisa Barnes. Here. Jim Zarski. Here. Sarah Neck. Here. Nikki Hewitt. And Michelle is there. Here.
Excellent. All right. Our next item is approving tonight's agenda. We do have one item that we need to add to tonight's agenda, and that's to talk about the ACES budget. We have some unspent dollars, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how we want to spend that money. So with that amendment, ACES budget discussion to the end of the agenda, do we have a motion? Are there any other amendments that need to be made? All right, with that, do we have a motion to approve tonight's amended agenda?
Move to approve tonight's amended agenda.
All right, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Can we add that after F?
Yeah, it's going to be after the work plan. All right. Now we turn to public comment. We've got a few guests here tonight, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and sharing with us why you're here and the questions you have.
Hello, I'm Josh. Me and we're here for our social U.S. government final project. We do have some questions. Is this your guys' first meeting?
No.
What is your guys' timeline for?
How do you mean time on that? We don't have, we have a lot of projects that we're working simultaneously. So it's, we put together a work plan at the beginning of the calendar year. And it means some things that we're going to work on, events we're going to attend, outreach events, things like that. So it's sort of more of a continuum. Things that come up.
What's your, just U.S. government, what's your assignment? Like what they asked you to do, what brought you here tonight? Maybe that can help us frame up what you guys, to help you accomplish your goal of being here.
They asked us to take a set through thank you session and then discuss that a little bit and then present that to the class.
And they asked you to do this through like going to like a local town committee meeting. And so the town has 5 or 6 committees, so you were attracted to ACES for any particular reason, or?
Not exactly.
The schedule what?
I think you said this.
Okay.
How often do you get meet?
So do you know what ACES does? You know what ACES needs? Okay. You want to give a quick elevator pitch?
Yeah.
ACES.
So ACES stands for Advisory Committee for Environmental Sustainability. And this group of people or residents of the town superior have been appointed by the Board of Trustees to represent the community and bring forward recommendations to the town board on all matters related to sustainability and town security. So we've done a monthly basis to talk about important issues like garbage and recycling, composting, energy efficiency, water efficiency, and again, we discuss those topics and bring recommendations to the town board. It's very important that the chief really big deal. And that was stuff that people welcome.
Yeah, so I'm looking at councils and some council. Trustees and city councils, so think for whatever.
Okay.
I think this is the fullest meeting room we've had. Great.
Great.
All right. Is there anybody online that has public comment?
There's nobody on.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to new business. So, you want to catch your breath?
No, it's fine. I haven't watched last week, right? This is Mike's. We're going to share for the ACES. We should probably reminder everybody December 10th. So there's another ballot initiative. We vote, and then in terms of recent board actions, at least everybody on ACES is well aware that the town board passed a big contract with the public services. Unanimous on this wasn't because
Thank you.
so we are going to, I think we can build out in April. Super excited about that. Beyond that, I think the board's going to have a work session in December, the new board, and it'll be helpful to get some idea for, sort of, I think Mike will bring his own thoughts, but for ACES as a group, are there things that you want the board to think about for 2025? Something that kind of working on 2025 we're planning and what it is that we might want to do in the work session. I think that's kind of it. We need bigger room for ACES.
Can I just ask one quick question? Has Rock Creek HOA taken the initiative to meet with the town agent?
We made over to all the committees, basically all the committees. We met with all of them. We're actually meeting with the downtown Superior Metro districts. I think our work session in December. So the HOA has been contacted quite a few times. They've chosen not to participate. I think they're just. Yeah.
Thanks.
How would you like ACES to?
Yeah.
I think this is really technically our last meeting of the year, so.
No, it can be the individuals. So you shoot the board now. Just think of yourself. It's more of, as a new board, we're going to have a couple of board members. We sort of to think about who we want to find. We're obviously having our sustainability and way up there. So what are some of the things that we can do organizationally to get there? All contracts is a huge step. Getting Rock Creek to move faster, moving bigger step.
Thank you.
So Neil already mentioned the town-based contract. Just wanted to give a big shout out to ACES for all of your help and support with that. I really don't think that would happen without you. So thank you to everyone who provided feedback in these meetings, but also who came and spoke on behalf and presented. Just really appreciate all of you all.
Standard for
And as Trustee Shaw mentioned, we are going to have ACES elections in January. So Jim has agreed to fill in as kind of our representative at the December joint meeting with Louisville and Lafayette. But we will have elections in January, and just wanted to also take a minute and recognize Mike for all of his leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Miles. Thank you, Miles.
And ahead of that January meeting, please think about if anyone else wants to run for chair, vice chair, whatever that looks like. I will send out there's a great part in the committee guidebook that talks about kind of what those roles and responsibilities are. Anyone is welcome to reach out to me as well, but I'll send you kind of a one page that talks about what does that mean. We'll be talking about ACES work plan tonight, but I did just also want to flag that right now it's scheduled to go to the board January 27th. So if anyone wants to be available for questions, I'm sure Mike will be able to kind of maybe wear his other hat while he's up there, but just know that's happening. Wanted to flag that we will be talking about events probably in January. I had a great meeting with Michaela to kind of talk about how this year went, and what we can improve upon next year in terms of sustainability and events. But I also know that ACES has a lot of great ideas related to that. So we wanted to provide everyone an opportunity to give feedback, talk about what we're doing this next year, kind of before event season, because it's hard to add things to events a week away or about to happen. But January is a great time for planning. And then lastly, I just wanted to provide an update on some of the grants we have out there. So we've heard a couple of times from the Colorado Energy Office about our electrification grant, just that they keep pushing back the deadline to let us know.
Oh, wow.
So they've had a couple of things happen internally with staff and other things. So we asked for $200K to electrify this building. So we'll see, fingers crossed to get that. And then Boulder County did just release their notice of funding opportunities for that for next year, and they're reporting out on the electrification study and roadmap that we did for this building this year. We had to wait for it to get cold, which, as you all know, that took a little bit this time. So we got pushed back a little bit on the audit there. But when that work is complete, I shared that with ACES. And then to put the times and days for those couple winter events coming up. So the annual Secure Bazaar, Sister City Bazaar is happening 7th of December from 10 to 3, and then Winter Festival is on the 14th from 10 to 5.
What's the Sister City Bazaar? It is a craft sales, singing all in this whole facility. So part of the profits that each vendor sells goes to our Sister City fund. And, so it's a very festive place to be, and we're going to take it. So we'll talk about that later. Cool.
That's all I got.
Moving around to working groups. Ouch. Agenda item, so.
Okay, so we got the chance to meet, and so we sent out the trifecta of the 3 documents for the process of communication. And this is just to clarify, Alexis has her communications that she does through the sustainability newsletter, through the town's communications channels. What we're talking about is individual ACES members supplementing that to get foot traffic and eyes in the community on the event so they know what's going on. So that's, I think, the hardest part. So that would be us using our social media channels. Our Superior Community Facebook, our 0027 Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, so word of mouth, call your neighbors, things like that, to get people to the events that she put so much time into. Anything else?
In that meeting, we discussed, ideas for the upcoming events. So America Recycles Day, Colorado Recycles Week, Winterfest, which is being run by the Chamber of Commerce. ACES is going to have a booth. So we're trying to use these tools to kind of get ourselves ahead of the to understand and plan what we need about as communications. So linking back, obviously, the objectives that ACES agreed to when we agreed the 4 objectives. It's like the a while back. So our message is big back to that. So yeah, we discussed the events, discussed some messaging about
So tomorrow is America's Recycles Day, national, and this week is deemed by Governor Poll's Colorado Recycles Week. So if we would have had this approved, we would have done a splash last week to say all the activities, and there are a lot of activities going around the towns in the area for American Recycles Day. I'll just put blast out tomorrow for American Recycles Day, but hopefully next year we'll be able to, once you see the plan in place, once you approve it tonight with your comments, we can really beef it up. Great, thank you.
Resources.
I'll go ahead and share out, Michelle. So we had a very brief meeting before this meeting today, and we're going to shift our time, I think, to after these meetings. 5 o'clock is just becoming too hard to give everybody together. But we did talk briefly about the work plan for next year, shifting from contract development for waste to implementation, education, and engagement as one of ACE's biggest roles on the resources side for next year. Michelle also had a great idea, and I know we've talked a little bit about it in the past, but creating kind of an ACES onboarding packet or some kind of intro for new members to come on. We talked about some of the different ideas from reading through the climate action plan, which is not currently on kind of the list, but it will be going forward, as well as sitting in on subcommittee meetings and kind of attending events and kind of making a must do for your first year on ACES as a volunteer. That gets you a little more involved in the work going on and the engagement with the community overall. And then the last thing, just Sarah, I know you can talk more about this, but tomorrow's the CU Master Environment Symposium tomorrow morning. So I will be there to critically judge Sarah's team's presentation on PBSE and their decarbonization plan. But there are some tremendous groups going, not to say Sarah's group is not, they're going to be presenting some amazing things, but I did notice right after the BVSD presentation is actually a presentation that was done for CAP Management, which is an HOA management company looking to develop a sustainable HOA certification. So I'm going to be sure to sit on that one too, Sarah. Don't be jealous, but I shared
more to that if you're interested, because I'm good friends with that girl is actually the other one planning this event. But yeah, they are developing basically similar to how you would create like a LEED certification, but for HOAs. They've had a really interesting process. This is the second iteration of the project, and they are looking at how do we actually get HOAs on board? Because like when you're a certification that's not nationally renowned, then they're like, why do I care about this certification? So I think it would be super interesting. I actually talked to her a little bit about Rock Creek and kind of the barriers there. So yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting conversation, Miles. Maybe we can report back on some learnings from that.
Yeah, I was going to do a little bit of a one-pager to report back to ACES. I think if it's okay with you, I think it would be beneficial to send out the links in the program for those on ACES that want to attend sessions for tomorrow. I just got it tonight. So there are virtual links for people who can attend, but I'll be there in person. So anyway, don't have much else. Did I miss anything, Michelle, John?
No, that sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Operations.
Yeah, we, Michelle and I, ended up going to see if I can find it here.
Range.
Yeah, I was trying to find the name of the group. Yeah, Front Range Community Sustainability Board meeting last night. It was in Boulder. The newest group that just started up this year, it's representing basically sustainability communities all around the Front Range. So the furthest away, probably the endpoints are Longmont and Englewood, and then all communities in between. City of Boulder hosted it, and they had 2 speakers on water efficiency. Just a couple points if you guys want to look up these documents. One person presented on the Colorado Water Plan 2023. That's a public document, looking at the water across the whole state. And then the other presenter was the woman in charge of the City of Boulder's water supply and talking about their infrastructure and so forth. And so I think this is something maybe for ACES to talk about. We threw it on the work plan, whether we want to host this group. They meet quarterly. And I think the idea of this group is kind of like what we started last year with Lafayette and Louisville, is just to exchange ideas and lessons learned and challenges and all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of a message at the end of yesterday's meeting. Take back what you learned today, back to your committee, talk about what we talked about. So that was basically the extent of our kind of.
It was a great meeting.
Yeah, it's a good meeting.
We had 4 council members or municipal trustees at the meeting from Westminster, Broomfield, Boulder, and Thornton. Thornton is going to start an advisory committee. So they're putting a task force together first, and they asked for everyone's input and guidance for that. So I think they were envious of what Superior was doing. It was good.
So, yeah, that's all we got.
Great, well, thank you. Well, before we get to the discussion item, I just want to say thank you to everybody on ACES and to the ACES members that are no longer on ACES for all the incredible hard work that we've accomplished over the last 4 years that I've been on ACES. an energy action plan, sustainability action plan, brand new waste contract that's gonna provide pay-as-you-throw and more options for residents. I think these are really, really great foundational tools for Superior to hopefully lead the way in the state in sustainability and be that shining light for other communities to say, hey, how are you guys doing that? And we want to model you. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of your dedication and passion and hard work. It's paid dividends for the town, and I'm really looking forward to working with ACES in my new capacity and seeing what comes, all the great ideas, innovative ideas that comes to the board moving forward. So thank you. All right. And I'm looking forward to giving you a hard time now. All right, discussion item, comprehensive plan update. We have some guests from our planning department and our planning commission, so.
We have David and David. And I am Renee Stavros. I'm a planner with the town of Superior. So, have some notes in here, but generally I'm just going to look up at the TV and remind myself what I need to say. So, we are currently in the process of updating our comprehensive plan and our transportation plan for the town of Superior. The last time we did a comprehensive plan was in 2012. The purpose of the plan, I'm going to read straight from the screen, is to provide a basis for current and future land use decisions in the town of Superior. It seeks to facilitate rational decisions regarding future developments that are based on limited natural resources, economic considerations, and sound community design and planning principles. So, since the last comprehensive plan, we have downtown Superior, we have Rogers Farm, we have Lanterns Lane, we have Calmonte, we have the Cobell townhomes being built on the Resolute property, we have Wildflower Park, Coyote Ridge open space, and purchased vacant land at the bridge. So we've done some things since 2012. For the transportation plan, it was done in 2014, and we have the diverging diamond interchange at McCaslin and 36, downtown Superior Road Network, 88th Street capacity improvements, and the US 36 bikeway and local connections, which are all giant projects that have been done since 2014. So I would say that we've all been very busy for the last decade. But it's time to update these plans so that we can, set our vision for the future for the Superior and see where we want to go from here. Part of the comprehensive plan is putting together future land use, a future land use plan or framework for the whole town. We want to focus this time on updating our community-wide values for decision-making. It's an important piece of the plan is understanding who we are as a town and where we see ourselves, how we see ourselves now and how we want to be in the future. Part of the comprehensive plan will be to establish land uses and development patterns for different areas within the town and link together transportation, sustainability, resiliency, economic development, water, natural resources, what else? Land uses, kind of everything that we all do as a town regularly. There's 6 chapters in the comprehensive plan, and we're maintaining those chapters, updating those chapters, and weaving some new themes, community-wide values, water, and a couple other things throughout the plan. Next slide. Right now, this is the project timeline. We've done some visioning. We had our first, community survey, which hopefully all of you saw and took.
I sent it out, so yes, we talked about it,
Very
so.
good. And so we have, our consulting team, Cushing Terrell, is working on compiling, information from this first survey and then the demographics, kind of just like where we are right now, they're putting that all together. They're doing data collection and analysis on feasibility of vacant properties throughout the town. This month in November, we're doing stakeholder meetings. That's why I'm here. We're going to all of the committees that the town has. I think there's eight of them. And we're also meeting with, specific stakeholder groups that we've determined we need to get more feedback and input from. I think, let's see, is there a slide in here? I don't think we list them, but, we've met with, our meeting with owners of undeveloped properties. I want your feedback this evening on whether or not we should have like, a sustainability stakeholder group specifically for professionals in the industry. And what that would look like, who might be invited to something like that. There's a resiliency, stakeholder group that, Allison put together. She's a town staff, a resiliency manager for the town. That includes like the fire department, Mile High Flood District, I'm forgetting. Alexis, that on, didn't you? You didn't go to that? Okay. Ah, darn it. I can't think of all the people that were invited. Boulder County, the emergency manager's office. And there was a bunch of
Is
people.
our water department there?
I don't think they went to that. Our water utility, manager, superintendent is actually presenting to planning commission on Tuesday, the 19th, this coming Tuesday. So if you want to hear a presentation, Neil's heard it last year, I think. But he's updated it a little bit, very little bit, for 2024, and he's presenting, to the planning commission next Tuesday. So, come to the planning commission meeting and listen to the exciting world of water in town of Superior. He's actually really good at presenting the information in a way that you can, understand it, and it's not overly technical. Next slide. So, we have a webpage on Shape Superior. We did the tabling at Chili Fest if you were there, and also the Fall Festival in downtown Superior. Like I said, we're right in the middle of the advisory committee discussions and stakeholder meetings. We'll have a second pop-up event, open house, and perhaps another survey. We're debating what that would look like. If we do that, we'll also be putting together a speaker series in the new year where we have professionals in the various departments, I guess, come and talk about the specific topics that they are, subject matter experts in. So perhaps like a transportation engineer or planner or something along those lines. Maybe a sustainability person of some sort. I don't know what all of that speaker series will be like, so I'll let Alexis know when that's farther out and I don't have details on it, but it is coming and you will get information on it as we figure out what it'll look like. So the first survey was the first question in the first survey.
Can you tell us how many people responded to the survey?
260. I don't.
260. Somewhere around there.
thought it was 200. Was it not 2? Was it 150? I thought that was. I thought it was- Yeah. So we asked our, the number is similar to past surveys that we've done as from the planning side of things. And I think you can glean some information from the surveys. I will, like, Cushing Terrell said that it was, you know, a typical response rate for something like this. But anyhow, as you can see, the first question, was what do you love about Superior, basically? And to me, the responses seemed to be in line with how, I feel the town residents feel about the town. You value open space a lot. People love the small town feel, they love the trails and the parks. Resounding numbers of people said that they love their community, like whether it was their neighborhoods, their neighbors specifically, you know, a particular area within town. They liked the access that they had to Denver and to Boulder and to the airport. Yeah, so I thought I put this word bubble together just for the first question, just because I felt like it was a pretty good glimpse at how people feel about the town of Superior.
Can you clarify? I think I remember from the map that open space is not included in your planning jurisdiction. Is that correct?
We have open space designated lands in the town.
Okay.
But when people speak of open space, they often speak of some of our open space and Boulder County open space, and perhaps even Broomfield, Boulder County. I think it's Boulder County open space. Gotcha.
And some things that look like open space are just undeveloped commercial lands, which have been that way for so long that no one knows.
Next slide. That's perfect. So, Alex in our planning department put together this handy dandy little, I don't know, flyer, if you will. It's, you know, not perfected yet, so it's not out for any consumption of the public, but it's in this slide to help you understand. We have 81 acres of vacant land that is available to be developed or to be designated as a particular use. There are 23 acres in the Zaharias property and downtown, the downtown part of downtown. So basically Old Railway to, what's Cold Creek? What is that? Something Creekview Drive. Is 21 acres. So if you picture, you know, the sports stable, and all of the buildings along Main Street there, it's about the same size as the Harriet's property. So really this map, this flyer is just kind of help wrap your heads around. We have 81 acres. It's scattered throughout the town, and there's different developments that you can kind of see and picture in your mind that, you know, are equivalent in size to the lands that we have to develop. So you can kind of better understand what might fit on those pieces of land for the sizes that they are. Next slide.
Just curious, is the land on Colton and the castle there, does it have a name?
Town 15.
Town 15,
You'll see that.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Yeah.
15 acres.
It's super creative because it's 15 acres.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry, Renee. It's frozen. Let me stop sharing and be sure.
Well, she's doing that question. Parks did a master plan back in 2019 or 2021. We have the sustainability action plan, and I'm sure there are other plans. How is the comprehensive plan layering in all of those data points and resources and community input and feedback into what they envision for those specific plans?
Sure. So each of our plans, like the sustainability plan, will be discussed and mentioned in the sustainability chapter of the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is kind of like the bigger picture look at it, and it will, and the sustainability action plan is just what it says, the action items. It's like, here's the big things that we want to focus on, and then the action plan is like, how are we going to do those things? The same thing for the transportation plan. There's a separate chapter in the comprehensive plan for transportation, and we will talk about the transportation plan, and we'll talk about the one that's being updated as we do the comprehensive plan. The actual transportation plan itself will have, more action-oriented steps and how to achieve the goals that are outlined in the comprehensive plan in the transportation plan section.
Okay.
There are the open space and trails one will be mentioned as well. I think there's a parks one, there's a water management plan. So there's a plethora of plans that will be mentioned and discussed. And, if there's, within the lens of ACES, I want to hear what matters most to you all. And then how you see the town in the next 10 years, and perhaps if there's issues that you want to focus on over the next 10 years. You have, focus areas outlined in your sustainability action plan, and you have, work plan focus areas. If there's like an area that you feel in the next 10 years is kind of going to explode, is that something that we should include in the sustainability chapter of the comprehensive plan? Is there something we can help uncover or dig deeper on to help you achieve your goal? New sustainability concepts that haven't been explored. I'm sure that you've achieved a bunch of things from the sustainability action plan, and maybe not all of the things, or there's, bigger picture items that you'd really like to get to at some point. Those are the
you
things
ready
that we're
for this ideas?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I have two things,
Okay.
because I know my coworkers are gonna come up with the others, but two that haven't been on our radar. Mike brought this one up before, but looking at impervious surfaces in our community and how can we reduce the runoff and the impervious surfaces and get more natural surfaces and put that as a key future planning step. Right now, what we see, we have all this urban pollution, nitrates and everything going down into our settling ponds. They give off a horrific smell in the summertime because we have so much nutrients going down to those things. So we're trying to aerate with solar panels, but more impervious, more soil management, I think would be really good. The second one I want to bring up, and it came up at the town board meeting right before we did our waste contract, and it was a gentleman that talked about the secrecy of Boulder County Parks and Rec tying, or somebody in Boulder County tying that the land from the Rocky Plutonium Trigger Plant across the street and bringing that path into the town of Superior, and the potential for radioactive particles landing in our town from bikers and hikers. And right now it's very quiet.
Rocky Mountain Green, I think it's what it's called.
Rocky Mountain Greenway, yeah. And so there's little transparency on it. There's little opportunity for public input. I've tried to dig, can't get any information. And it's a big issue. I feel like it's the elephant in the room right now.
I am taking notes on my,
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
I'm not,
I do the same, so
I'm not just texting,
Yeah.
while you speak.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think water use as a whole, I bet Jim can speak to this better, but sprinklers and green spaces rather than like xeriscaping.
I mean, one thing we heard last night from the Superior, or the City of Boulder water supply person is, that's what I was wondering if the water department was at your meeting, is that they're already planning for resiliency. And they're already doing modeling of the droughts and climate change and long-term water supply for the City of Boulder. And so they're proactively extrapolating that, looking at how much, based off of models. I guess there's like 200 plus models. They chose the 7 that were most appropriate to our climate here. And they looked at the factoring in growth, how short were they going to be? And how are they going to build up their infrastructure to meet future water needs?
We do, I learned this, I didn't know this, have a water conservation plan
Yeah.
for the town.
Yeah.
I haven't read it, but I'm sure that you're aware of it. But I think that's part of Jim's conversation and discussion will be how we are planning for those things. He's done a lot of research and looking at, future build outs. And part of the comprehensive plan is putting together, the future land uses. And so when we do that future land use plan, we will take that to Jim and say, what's the water feasibility, the utility feasibility of these future land uses on these areas for the town as a whole? So that's part of the discussion. So yeah, that's a big one.
I also just think quality of life is important. And I think being able to not sit at a traffic light for 2 or 3 cycles is important. And we got one big traffic light right down here, McCaslin and Marshall. And I feel like if we're going to continue to pack things in that area, I don't see those roads getting any wider. So it doesn't matter how many bike paths and electric bikes you put in, people still like their cars.
And if the transport their stuff that they.
And so I don't feel like that has been considered too closely, just on my humble observation, when you're trying to go to Target or Costco on a Saturday or Sunday. It's pretty busy down there. So I think we need to figure out, the impacts on transportation developments too.
Mm-hmm.
Just not just developing the vacant land, but for instance, with the shopping center down there, I forget what it's called, the marketplace. There was some talk about putting hundreds of apartments in rather than the retail that we have now, because the retail isn't necessarily booming. And the effect that would have on not only, water use, but also traffic in the area.
That is part of our feasibility study, is looking at infill in the marketplace, not to replace the retail that exists there, but to help prevent the retail that exists there from dying. And that's part of the conversation that our consulting team is having with the owners of the lands that have potential to either develop because they're undeveloped or redevelop because there's potential for it in those locations. And it will look at, the feasibility from an economic standpoint, from a traffic perspective, but I think I heard you say, also part of that traffic is congestion and pollution from that, and not just traffic as in I don't want to sit in the light, but when you're sitting in the light, what that means for.
Well, even the
But also
design
an
of
emergency.
the distance of the traffic light from Marshall and McCaslin to the traffic light at the beginning of the diverging diamond, we've all seen that at the intersection.
Yeah.
Add 300 apartments to the Superior Marketplace. I mean, you're gonna have to get engineers and people to redesign that whole path if you're not gonna have cars backing up all the way on the Marshall.
I know that is part of what they are looking at. I assure you that we have talked to our traffic engineers of the town, and I'm sure you've read traffic reports that talk about A level, B level, C level, D level, and it's like, you know, when you get to F, I'm like, so we're failing? And the traffic engineer is like, no, you're not failing, this is acceptable. And I'm like, it's an F. So we've asked them to, you know, help us by putting it into numerical terms that layman's people can understand, you know, like level C is X number of cars passing by, like, our traffic engineer put it to me in this way where the cars coming out of Bell Flatirons are like one car every 2 minutes throughout the day and like one car every 45 seconds during rush hour. And I was like, well, that's not very much. He's like, yeah, but that's 1,500 cars a day. And I was like, what? So it's like, you know, like when you say 1,500 cars a day, you're like, oh my God, that's insane. But for the entirety of Bell Flatirons, you know, they really have like a car every 2 minutes passing through the intersection there. So it'll be hopefully more helpful for people to understand the impacts of, from a purely transportation standpoint. There's lots of other ways and reasons to look at redevelopment in the marketplace. For emergency,
Like I wasn't here during the Marshall Fire, but I understand it was
right.
particular to the
I mean, there's a whole list of things that they would need to consider as part of that. But the transportation is one of the big concerns that we hear, and we're asking them to put it in terms that we can better understand and convey to people who don't speak traffic engineer terms, like most of us.
Yeah. But anyway.
Also add, bike paths. I've started using bike paths, recently, and I really appreciate, I live in downtown, and I really appreciate how easy it is for me to take my e-scooter to the park and ride. So I think just keeping that in mind for any future expansion, maintaining bike paths, if possible, putting in, protected bike lanes, like I think there are technically bike lanes on McCaslin going up the hill. I would never feel comfortable riding on that. And there are sidewalks there, which we don't want to encourage the bicyclists to use those. So, yeah, big fan of our bike paths.
Other feedback, ideas?
When you develop these plans, you guys ever talk to the neighboring communities to look at the impacts on our growth plan to their growth plan and their growth plan on our growth plan?
We do.
Okay.
Our feasibility analyst, especially like if you're looking at like the Resolute property and the feasibility of what goes on that property, it's adjacent to Broomfield. So they'll look at, you know, the mall and across the street on the south side of Colton Road as, you know, part of their feasibility analysis for what goes on that vacant piece of land. From a transportation perspective, they look at coming, like trips going in and out of Superior from adjacent jurisdictions. And then we do have a 3-mile plan for the town of Superior that looks, you know, 3 miles surrounding the town. And it's got those, you know, future uses of those properties, most of which are either open space for us, or Lewisville or Broomfield.
What about Arvada? All the development south of 128 and the impacts on the McCaslin corridor. Is that any discussions going on there?
So those are also that whole area, like all of those are part of the discussion. We also, when we do developments and when developments are coming, when we're within a particular boundary of a development happening in an adjacent jurisdiction, they will send those plans to us. We call it a referral review. So we receive referrals from adjacent jurisdictions who have developments happening in their jurisdictions that are within a particular boundary of us, to ensure that we don't have comments on, we can't like say, no, we reject this, but we can request, or ask questions or, make our comments heard on those projects and plans.
To give you the non-staff answer, I think we do a terrible job of taking information from Bloomfield or Jefferson County about what they're doing with the airport and evangelizing. They tell us, and they try not to tell us, and we do a terrible job of communicating inside Superior about what that may do, to the quality of life here. I don't know the right way to do it better. And then when we think about development, Louisville between Red Tail Ridge and the redevelopment of the Cinnabar are going to have material impacts on Superior, which we've got to figure out how that's going to play out. I think Louisville got to figure it out too, but they haven't. Maybe they're going to break ground on Campus Drive next year, which would be huge in so many different ways. But those are things that, Louisville not going to talk to us. Like, hey, what should we do to Campus Drive? Like, fix it. But those are the things that, each community unfortunately thinks of themselves in a silo, and we need to be doing a much better job, especially when we think transportation. Transportation engineers do a better job of communicating with everybody else. Development does not. They think about themselves in a little silo. Like, my development is only here. Redwood's a great example of where, the impact of Broomfield, they don't care. Broomfield could care less about us. Like, look at Burger Road down here, and, it's like they put anything here because, it's a food swamp. Because most of the residents in Broomfield don't even know that this is in Broomfield. So I don't know how we do a better job, but we need to.
Well, like if you put all these multifamily developments in, which they've been doing the last 10 years,
Especially in Broomfield.
well, they impact, Colton and then McCaslin. When can't you bring the county in to have jurisdiction to be like, okay, now we need county dollars to widen these roads? And like the county should be able to say, okay, Broomfield, before you get this, Superior has to sign off on this. And vice versa, because it's gonna, or like in theory, our VAD, before they blew up everything down there, Rocky Flats, now we're paying the price of all the cars on McCaslin going to 36.
Yeah, no, we're materially affected because you have a lot of folks in Broomfield that use McCaslin as a shortcut.
Yeah.
Sorry, using Rock Creek Parkway as a shortcut to McCaslin instead of staying on Colton. Like, Colton is a major arterial that also takes you to get on McCaslin, but we are still seeing big growth because people are using Google Maps as opposed to,
Their brain.
sense. Yeah. And that's like, honestly, because I've been sitting on the TSC for a million years, we haven't figured out the right way to kind of get people to go and stay on the roads that are designed for them. Short of like lowering
speed bumps down there.
lowering speed bumps and having cops out there 24/7, which is, the fool's errand in terms of experience. But it is a problem for all of us, especially as the density grows. Broomfield has added a ton of new housing. They actually have like another, 1,000 units ready to go that are approved. They just don't, the developers don't have financing. So, and that's not all like here. It's just, throughout the blob that is Broomfield.
So one thing we haven't mentioned is climate change, and we should be looking at what the future development has, what effect it has on climate change, because we do have a lot of climate goals. And one thing I've been thinking about is, we're a small town and we achieve our goals. Is that going to help the world? I'm not sure, but maybe we could set an example.
Now, I'm just curious, when you say like what impacts future developments have on climate change?
One thing is we need to look at the greenhouse gas inventory, which we had one, how many years ago?
2016, I think.
2016.
Yeah, it's a number.
And what goes into that in terms of the, how it's calculated? It's based on, number of people, cars, whatever. I'm not sure about cities because I've done it more for manufacturers and people like that. But look at what goes into it and see what our future development is having as an impact. So we don't want it to grow as opposed to shrink.
And maybe off of that, I don't know if this is part of the comprehensive plan, but like setting some sort of standards for like high efficiency, largely electrified buildings, because then your GHG inventory won't go up that much if you're not putting in like gas powered boilers, and I was gonna hear all about this tomorrow. But yeah, if you install like electrified housing, then it doesn't meaningfully impact the juice shoot,
Depending on
well,
what our
as the grid
grid is.
part, yeah.
Do they have control over this? Or the energy code and things like that? Do they actually have, does the planning commission actually have control over that? Or is that more our energy code and the town board?
That's what I was gonna say, Jim. That's exactly what I was gonna say, is that our code got really stringent after the Marshall fires. I mean, there was a gap period where people were allowed to rebuild differently, but code going forward is gonna be much more electrification anyway. So, for any new builds or new developments.
So if a new apartment building goes in, are there gonna be requirements?
Yeah.
For electrification?
It's electric preferred is our code right now, so it's 2021 and codes with electric preferred, solar ready and EV ready. So we've made progress. It's certainly much better. We want to be getting more ambitious as things go on.
And then as more people buy EV cars, we'll probably need more charging stations or have the ability to charge at the multifamily residences.
And I want to do a quick time check. We allocated 30 minutes for this topic and we're like right at 30 minutes, so just.
I figure we could go forever. But
So maybe we could wrap it up in two more comments. Nick.
For new commercial buildings, if you can require LEED certifications or even like remodel or, repurpose. For the commercial side, I don't know if you could do that so much for a residential, but in the commercial side possibly.
Mine was just linked to demographics. If we look at demographics when we're planning, because in climate change context, when we're looking at resilience, if there are emergencies like wildfires, droughts, etc., some portions of the population are affected more heavily than others, in the sense that older people, for example, are less mobile, so they can't get out of their house as quickly. So I would just add that point that maybe demographics is important in the climate change sustainability lens.
And I was just gonna add, you asked earlier, you posed the idea, should we have a working group with sustainability professionals? And I say yes. We have a lot of clean air, we've got energy people, we've got climate people that live in our community, that work in these wonderful institutions around us. And we have.
So that we can wrap it up, if you have ideas for people to invite to a sustainability group, send them to Alexis, and then we'll work with Alexis to see if we can put together a working group with them, or at least have someone speak at one of the series later on down there. And if you go home and you have other ideas, I wanna, provide them. I have business cards that I will leave, or you can just let Alexis, send them to Alexis and she can send them to me. But I will leave my business cards. So that
She's Renee, yes.
yes, I am not hard to find, and if you go to the planning office, I am there. But I will leave these.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's great.
Good luck. Yeah. That's a big task.
Good thing we can meet once every 12 years, right?
Is it typical for towns? about
Okay,
our size
yeah,
to
no, I
do
just
every 10
got
years?
it. So, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to share it as a PDF or
Yeah.
we're talking like.
Yeah, better to do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ideas.
we've looked at 15 years of it in the future.
See, do you know Michelle is next?
We're not so far off.
This
Or we
solar
should be.
board.
All right.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.
You can just put it in the box underneath there and then I'll deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
nice to
coming.
meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. ACES communication plan. I don't know if Michelle is leading this.
How about say that Nikki lead this?
I feel like I've presented on this already, so I'm not really sure what to say. I think everyone's heard me about this multiple times. Really the objective of having this item on the agenda was to just
for everyone in the committee just to have a look at it. And to give us, you know, your thoughts and feedback on what we put together. It's very wordy, obviously, I'm used to writing white papers and things, so there's a lot of words. But really what we're trying to do is, like I mentioned earlier, get used to kind of extracting from this script, or these scripts that we've incorporated into this plan around our core ACES objectives, which were around water conservation, electrification, and I think it was the waste contract was the other one. So I don't know if anyone's had a look at this it was sent around before the meeting. Has anyone managed to take a look, and are there any thoughts?
Miles, could you open it eventually?
Lisa just sent the PDF and the Word document 6:09. So I've not had a chance to look through it, but it is here.
Yeah, so we have a grid at the end, which is where we start to like plan out communications for each event based on the strategy. So this is kind of an active box that we're using. So you can see that we've done something for Winterfest, for the Sister City event, what we did for Arbor Day, Earth Day. Any thoughts?
Well, thank you to the communications group for putting this together. This is obviously a lot of work, and just really appreciate it. I think for me, the matrix helps me get a visual sense of what it is we're trying to do, where we're trying to do it, what our key messages are. So I really appreciate you putting that together. Very helpful.
We're trying to incorporate macro kind of global messages, and we're trying to distill it down into how does it relate to Superior. So it goes from global to country to state to town. So the idea is that any one of us can go into this document and just use bits and pieces from the script.
Maybe
And then
the scripts.
yeah, we'll show some of the scripts.
Like they're mostly on the bullets and the checks.
Yeah.
Do you want me to just stop at one? Do you want one we don't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do the rethink water usage is a good.
Yeah, so households must act urgently to protect our water supply. So what we're trying to do with this plan is also encourage residents and businesses to actually take ownership, because obviously we can't achieve our goals without them, taking ownership. So you can see that we've gone from a very wide message all the way through to what we're actually doing in Superior, what we've done so far, and what we're aiming to do. So
Make it tangible.
yeah, to make it tangible. So we referenced like the IPCC synthesis report. Sounds very fancy, but it's just linked to the UN climate conference.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
So as what Nikki brings to our team has been really the big international people, and we thank her for that. And we realize there are many people in our community that don't even know that these exist. So as we bring up the climate document and knowledge of people, they will then be able to understand our policies and get behind some of the goals in our sustainability action plan. The plan doesn't do any good if people don't understand what's in the plan. I'll bring you the water one example, a real case that came up with the trustee Shaw was at the First Fridays, and a resident from Rock Creek came and asked for the town board's help because she is trying to zero-scape, and the HOA's management company has told her she is not allowed to zero-scape because the interpretation of the rule of the HOA is that 75% of Mitchell has to be green. And so just to pass this on, we have a lot of education, huge. So outreach and education is really focused on bringing up the whole acumen of our town through routine messaging on the 7 pillars in our sustainability action plan. So I could see something being posted every week on one of these. So as you get ideas, a phrase you heard somewhere that resonates with you, send it our way, because we want what made you think that was a really good phrase, that made me stop, listen, ask questions. So please, this is only gonna be as good as you feed information into it. So I ask you to continually send us those one-liners, those links that you see that work on bringing up that acumen that we so desperately need.
And I would just mention, I went to a webinar just before this meeting from 4 to 5 about climate change and mental health. That was really interesting. But one of the speakers talked about positive messaging, and he went through and looked at he pulled up all the TikToks on climate change, and 95% were negative. So he said a positive message can also be very effective. And it's so important to put out positive messages and for mental health. And that was the focus of this webinar. But I thought it was fascinating because he has 250,000 followers on Instagram or TikTok or one of those, I forget which. And all of his messages are positive. And he talks about positive things happening. So I think we should also think about that when we're putting out our messages to the community. And I think this can be a living plan and add more one-liners to it. It doesn't have to be a static document.
I think it seems like maybe people shouldn't have time to read it.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, considering not many people are speaking up, so maybe that could be an action, people can take some time to read it after this meeting. We wanted to approve it in this meeting, didn't we?
You want permission for us to use it.
Permission for us to use it. Maybe you can kind of blindly give permission for us to use it and then read it in your own time.
And I would suggest maybe ahead of events, it might be great whether it's in your working group report out or as an agenda item, maybe like we can revisit this ahead of events of like, what is the ACES message gonna be? What should we talk about? Like kind of keeping it fresh in that way, because this is a lot for people to digest. And I think it's really wonderful, but then that'll keep us on board with what's the upcoming topic.
It's totally a lot to read.
To continue. So to continue that, the forward look document is the one that has the calendar of all the events and international events, International Recognition Day, like Lights Out Day. And so we would, to your point, Alexis, we would go ahead and look at them 2 months out and say, hey, we have this event in town coming, and we have these events that are recognized internationally or celebrated nationally. What should be our messages? And we could bring some of those messages here proactively and then send you, these are the ones that we'd like to work on. Can we agree on what we want to say, when we want to say it? So it's all in concert with the town messaging. We'll just reach those people.
We do need the committee to get a bit more active on social media though. I think like between us, I kind of realised the importance of kind of amplifying each other's messages. Because it's quite upsetting really personally when you post something and get one like each other to make it successful.
Or just get angry faces.
Question on outreach for next year. Is the electrification expo gonna happen again?
I'm talking with our peer committees about that. We're definitely gonna do the expo again. Question on if we rotate where that is, just to kind of expand the reach. We'll still be involved, we'll still be partners. I'd say the most likely would be at the Louisville Community Center, or the rec center, which is just down the road from us. But I think that there could be value. There was such a valuable event this last year. There could be value in moving where it is just to kind of encourage new audiences to attend. So TBD on that timing as well, because we did the whole series, so we may change when it is, but I'll keep you updated. We're definitely gonna do that again.
And to your question, Nikki, about approving this, given that most of ACES hasn't had an opportunity to review this yet, I don't know that I'd be comfortable approving this tonight. I can say from my own perspective, having read through this directionally, this is going in the right direction. And again, creating that matrix of key messages by event, I think is going to be really important. And then it's just like plug and play. So from that standpoint, it's
approval for each event of what messages we're going to put out.
Yes, I think that's important, and we get forward enough like 2 months enough that we're here, that we plan what that would be.
So we can all be on the same approach.
Yeah.
So Ecotoberfest, our key messages are gonna be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do I anticipate there being communications, other like stakeholders other than like the general public? Do we anticipate there being anything really other than that? I mean, you get like slightly more,
We do,
the electrification expo, you'll have more like catered audience to that, but.
I would say that's something we do, Boulder County has good networks that we could probably tap in a little bit more. But our focus is down and in the town of Superior.
Mhm.
And so we might learn from other networks, but our messaging is targeted for down and in.
Okay.
So that's easier. I think that gives us a boundary and gives us a focus, and we're not going in many directions.
Mhm.
We have a lot of work to do down there.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
When you're talking about your media, you're talking about Facebook and all this. As an older person who's sitting here, I don't do Facebook.
Great.
I don't do Instagram. Don't do anything. I use my phone to take messages and make phone calls, make lists. That's it.
So very good point. Thanks
There
for
are a
bringing that
lot
up.
of older
So we have-
generation
Yeah.
who don't do
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, don't do YouTube.
And that's very valuable because we have a very active senior citizens group. So I'm a member of the Gardeners United, and I bring our stuff up. The waste contract, that was the best group to float ideas like, what do you know about pay as you throw? So I got so much good input, which helped with the props, because they said, I don't understand this. I'm like, well, if I bring the props and explain it. So that was my pilot group. So I thank you so much for publicly recognizing the importance of face-to-face communication.
But I don't do Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Social media was just one of our
Yeah.
channels.
Yeah.
We also do a lot of face-to-face in our booths.
My
and
my
we-
suggestion.
That was very valuable. Thank you.
If you do, and I'm not familiar with Superior, so if you have like in Westminster, which I get after them all the time, is that they have the rec center with all the different classes, put it in that, because a senior will read that.
Yeah.
Partner with
Yes.
Louisville has a senior center in their rec, which is a very busy place for the seniors.
Yeah.
And we can partner with Louisville on some of
Yeah, but
those.
they're more apt to read something that's in the booklet with classes and stuff, because we read that cover to cover, because we don't wanna miss any
Right.
class. We don't wanna miss any class, especially if the class says free.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think as Lisa said, I mean, I focused on the socials, but there are multiple channels that we've listed in that plan that that we hope to use. And I think when we looked at the demographics and who we were targeting, I think the majority was kind of 50 and over, wasn't it? Something like that. So, yes, point well taken, yes.
But I'm 70 and older, so. So if you're doing 50, that's a young kid.
Right, any other initial feedback? So, since we're not gonna have a December meeting, do we wanna agendize this for the January meeting and an action items for ACES members between now and January to review this and come with feedback?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. Do you want to create, Mike, do we want to put this in the Dropbox for edits and updates, suggesting mode so ACES members can make suggestions to it?
Yeah, of course.
Great idea, Miles. Yep.
Thank you.
Sounds like Nikki's gonna do that. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else on the communications plan, we'll move on to Vargas Electrified Landscaping Equipment Grant Letter Support.
So I just wanted to talk about this really briefly. As y'all hopefully know, we've talked about this quite a bit. You know, we've had ambitious electrification goals for Vargas with their landscaping equipment. It hasn't been a smooth road. You know, they were kind of on the bleeding edge originally. They purchased some large mowers, which have not worked out as well. You know, we're encouraging them to really double down on the handhelds this next year, because regulation 29 is going to require that through the ozone months in the summer, that they use 100% electric handheld equipment. But they could really use some support as they look for grant funding to continue to kind of expand what they're doing, in terms of their electrified landscaping equipment. So they've asked if the town and or ACES would be willing to, sign a letter of support that they could submit with their grants, saying that we are supportive of this direction. This is a priority for us, and we would love for them to be eligible to receive funding. So, I would coordinate with, probably Jim, or, because I think they need it for a January deadline. There's Boulder County grants. But I just wanted to make sure that was aligned with ACES and just kind of mention it in this meeting. So,
We need to formally vote on that.
and motion of support
All right.
could be nice, yeah.
So that's, generally speaking, is there support for that?
Yes.
Seeing a lot of nodding
Yes.
heads.
So, yes.
Awesome.
And if you're interested in hearing from them, their contract will be on the December 9th town board meeting. It's a renewal, it's not like going out for bid again, but I'm sure that that component will come up. Because I will tell you that they have fallen quite a bit short, unfortunately, of what we would hope they would be at. So I have spent a number of months and a number of meetings trying to talk to them about like how we can continue to get them on the right path. Certainly make sure that we're meeting regulations, but also exceeding that with our goals. So they did attend, there was a Boulder County, or through RAC, the Regional Air Quality. They put on electrification workshops specifically for commercial landscapers. They sent, I think, like 8 or 10 people to that, so they really are trying to, you know, educate themselves, talk to different equipment providers, because I think, you know, some of the equipment choices they made early on, it might not have been the most successful provider. They've certainly had some equipment failures in the field. So I give them full credit for trying to do this, but I think that we do want to continue to push them to commit to this, to expand that. But of course, that's gonna require funding for them, so.
Are we blindly recommending this without making sure that the equipment is available to support our goals?
No, so we provided feedback on the regulation in particular.
Okay.
When that policy was being discussed, we had conversations with CC4CA and also with RAC about what's feasible. I feel pretty confident that on the handheld side, that that's come a long way on the commercial landscaping part.
Yeah, the handheld, I agree, but what about the sit down mowers and stuff, the big stuff they need to
So-
get done around here?
I mean, that's not required for that regulation.
Okay.
And that is something they're continuing to look at, but of course, those
Yeah.
costs are bigger
Yeah.
and that technology isn't there as much. So that's why we've kind of said, really hone in the handhelds. I feel like that's
Yeah.
there. You know, you need to have more battery backups to switch out and other things. You know, there's some more investments to be made. I think that larger equipment, like you note, is more difficult. And that's part of the feedback that we gave when they were crafting that legislation.
Okay.
So I would say handhelds first, but of course, we don't want it to just stop there. We'd love them to keep at least, you know, having these conversations, being committed to this principle, and looking for those opportunities as they exist, especially if there's funding for them.
And, you know, to give Vargas credit, they were the first out of the gate to embrace electric landscaping equipment. And when you're the first out of the gate, you're gonna get beat up left and right because
Yeah.
nobody else has done it and you're the one taking all the hits. So gotta give them credit.
No, they definitely, they get a lot of credit, like, and they have, you know, been great participants in these conversations. They wanna do it, they wanna do it right. I think they just need a little help, like overcoming some of these challenges and that.
And a letter of support seems like pretty simple ask of the town.
Right, yeah. And we had a meeting with Grant Connectors yesterday. We did also ask, we can't apply, of course, on behalf of Vargas because that contract can change, right? It wouldn't make sense for us to be those people, but as they hear of other opportunities, we did mention this is a priority for the town. This is something we really want to see. So if there's other opportunities that you all hear about as well, you know, we're trying to connect more closely with Vargas on this topic. They do many things and they have a really wonderful high standard of landscaping. They're great with helping zero waste at events, as you've seen.
Yes.
They're tirelessly, it wouldn't work without them. So I give Vargas a lot of credit. They do a ton with our pollinators. They do free landscaping classes here at the community center. So this is not, to say anything negative about Vargas really, but they need a little extra support and help. So if you all see about any other resources or think of other ways we can support them, that'd be great.
So the grant that they're applying for is the Boulder County,
It's through PACE.
the PACE, okay.
Yeah.
But a couple of quick comments, we did hire Brent, you had to electric 20% the first year. Their quality of service was low, which is why we went back to Vargas. But one of the challenges we're gonna have to discuss with the board is the target to get 100% within the 5 years of the agreement. And if we're gonna fall short, to paying a premium for something that's not being delivered, right? So it's a question ultimately, if the town's paying a premium and then we're suggesting that we should go out and pay grant money, it's sort of like, well, why are we paying a premium if the grant money is gonna help plug that hole? And it's a question the board's gonna probably have to discuss on tap, and hopefully it's structured that way. Because I'm not a fan of using taxpayer dollars to pay for something we're not getting.
Totally fair. And sorry, just to clarify, too, we would not be getting the grant money. We're just.
I'm saying, right, like
Yeah.
the town is paying a premium for electrification that they're falling short on, so. That's a challenge, right? And if maybe everybody in the town and already entered into an agreement that was unattainable, fine, right? But the question ultimately becomes what's the right premium to pay for the service that you're getting when everybody said we can get 100% in 4 years.
If they give a grant, they discounts the premium.
And how many years?
Right, and that's exactly like, that's where I'm headed, right? You know, if you're not buying the products or they're failing, and that's one thing, but if the grant also play a hole, then great.
Does the town need to support them on charging infrastructure? Is that a barrier for them to be electric and even have level 3 chargers available if they gotta charge these big lawn mowers because they aren't gonna get you through the whole day?
And we've talked a little bit about, recharging those in the field. I think at this point, it's looking like extra battery packs and switching those out. Part of why we've really been encouraging them to go to these events is to talk to other commercial landscaping companies that have been successful with this for those lessons learned. It sounds like, I think the city of Louisville presented at that about how their parks team has been pretty successful at taking this on. So we're open to that. I mean, as we're looking at the operations and maintenance facility that may be designed in the future, we're making sure that, there's extra outlets and other things for charging electric equipment. It can be challenging because they're all over Superior. So I think it's often extra batteries as opposed to plugging in the field. But it's something that continues to be an ongoing conversation about how we can support them in this from the town perspective, because we want them to be successful.
Yeah, we just know, EV batteries or for that equipment they are fragile. And you can't be tossing them around in a truck because you break that membrane, then you can have a potential fire. And that's the last thing we want on our hands. So I think I commend you for having these conversations and getting them introduced to people that are using them. But I think that's really critical because we want to learn from what's working locally. And that was Louisville's working on it, then let's copy what Louisville's using.
And City of Boulder has done a lot, and I do really commend Vargas for sending, I think, 8 to 10 people to this. So they try to send their kind of field managers to learn about, the best practices and what's working, what's not, how they can optimize. And it'll just continue to be a conversation.
Is Vargas at a disadvantage for the grant because they are, third-party contractor versus the city of Louisville, the city of Boulder, who have a lot of this maintenance in-house?
I think that grant is only open to commercial landscapers. It's not actually open to municipalities for that particular one. That Boulder County one is through PACE, which just works with commercial businesses. So all they're asking for at this point is that we kind of support them in that, because I don't think we're eligible. And certainly we'll look for any opportunities because we have our own equipment as well. But Brooke, our grants manager, is pretty aware that this is a priority for us too, from both perspectives, ourselves and our contractors.
Great. All right, so it sounds like thumbs up to
Great.
letter support. All right, our next letter of
We don't
support,
need to vote on that? Number
Like I
16.
said. 6C, no.
Oh, wait, okay, 6, okay, I was getting mixed up with 6D. That's another letter of support.
That's another letter. of
Yeah.
support.
Okay, got it.
Many letters of support, and I don't know if we formally need to go through this process, but I'm trying to make ACES more aware of the official things that you can support. I think it always benefits our grant applications to have ACES do that. So let me see here. So I just wanted to call everyone's attention to this, obviously with the recent federal election, from a climate perspective, that's a little bit concerning, to understate it. But ICLEI, which we are a member of, they are asking for people to sign on to this commitment saying we are still in. I brought this up with Matt Magley, our town manager, and he suggested first bringing this to ACES to see if you all would support Superior signing on to this, and then bringing that to the board to sign on to. It's basically a letter of commitment, just saying we feel like climate goals are still important. And as you know, or may know, ICLEI is more of like an international consortium that we're a part of. So the town of Superior is small, but I think seeing all of that cumulative support and just saying that regardless of what happens at the federal level, you know, we're still committed to this locally, we're still committed to this where we are, I think is still really powerful. So I wanted to bring this to you all to see if we can continue down this road.
Wasn't ICLEI the organization that sponsored, I think it was the UN 50 cities, and Superior is one of those cities selected around the world to participate in climate action, climate resilience, and so signing on to this letter of support would be consistent with our past actions.
Is there a cost to doing this?
No, we're already ICLEI members.
COP21 is happening now, so, I mean, when's this gonna be the same?
I mean, we got it sent out, but then I was told to come to ACES, so I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen them say that when they're releasing this publicly, I assume soon.
Yeah.
So, but there's kind of an order of steps, and I think they know we're a little slower, obviously would ideally like the day of, but.
Great.
Yes, we're.
So are we?
Do we need a vote? I was gonna say, it's just
Maybe it's potentially supportive.
for this, so if we're gonna be making a recommendation to the board, then we should probably have an ACES vote and show support if that's what the majority votes for, so.
You said you want to repeat your statement?
Yeah, I would fully support the letter. We're still in.
Seconded.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of, we're still in, say aye.
Aye. Miles?
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're still in.
Okay.
It's gonna be the next one, not this one. I don't, does Trump withdraw the US from the Paris Accord for the next?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just sovereign.
Not necessarily tied to the cup.
It does say for.
It's COP 29.
So I'll talk to Matt again after this based on the ACES vote and whether we need to sign it ahead of going to, we'll figure out the order of operations, but he did want to.
Is there a difference?
It didn't say.
November 13th.
Whoops.
24.
Today.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's the first week.
Yeah.
Second week. It's next week.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will follow up on this.
All right, thank you for that.
Can I pitch again, not to beat a dead horse about this event tomorrow, but there is a group presenting who worked with ICLEI, and it actually, I expect it to be a really good presentation, but it's on sustainable and circular public procurement for local governments. So it could genuinely be really useful. So, yeah.
Do they record them? Are you guys recording it?
No, actually not. IT issues.
Yeah.
There's, yeah, and I can send the Zoom link. Yes. And program.
I can't come in person. I just change someone.
All right, December winter events.
Oh, okay, so we had Alexis put up there, do you want to bring up that little
Sure.
slide that we're talking about? So we have the two events that we're gonna table. One is gonna be the Sister Cities Bazaar here on that first Saturday of December 7th. Yeah, so that tabling is from 10 to 3. And then the Winter Festival this year is not at this building, but it's gonna be in a new site in downtown. And that's gonna be 10 to 5. So that's, the first event's 5 hours, the second event is 7 hours. And I'm gonna ask ACES if we can have your help in tabling in 2-hour blocks for those. I'll set up and I'll tear down and I'll be there, but I can't be there all day for both events.
I help on the 14th, 7th, I'm conflict.
Okay. And we did buy that reusable gift wrap that you all made a motion for last time, as well as, I think 5 reusable battery kits as like a raffle.
So we'll raffle them off on both of those events, so I'll divvy them up for both of them, and we'll raffle probably once every hour in the middle hours while the most people are there.
I might be able to help with the 7th.
Okay,
Have to
check.
check.
Yeah, the seventh looks better to me too.
Okay,
So I'm not here.
okay.
I can probably help on one or the other, I just have to check and see.
Yes.
One
I'll send an email out.
Seven.
Yeah, I'll send an email out with like a sign up genius, and then you can pick which ones you want to sign up for. But that would be good. It's a lot of fun tabling. We'll get the EcoCycle holiday guides. We interact with people and really work on the zero waste of the holidays. We communicate that gift wrap is not recyclable. Boulder County does collect it, a little small collection at the Boulder County Recycling Center. That means you have to haul it up there yourself. It's better off just not even wasting the gas unless you're going up there, unless you drive an EV. But it's better off to do sustainable gift wrapping or give gifts of events or experiences, so you're not making more stuff. Speaking of stuff, tonight's the psychology of stuff webinar, so I'll send the link afterwards in case, since we couldn't watch it tonight, if there's anything valuable, but it gets to the behavior that we're talking about to reduce everyone's carbon footprint and waste. So I'll follow up with a sign up genius. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. ACES work plan. Last month, we kind of kicked off an initial brainstorm of things we could be doing in 2025. And there was, at the time, general agreement that the work plan items that we had in 2024 were probably the right things to be focused on in 2025, but with some updating based on some of the recent successes we've had with waste contracts, et cetera. So I want to start the conversation there once Alexis pulls this up.
I'm gonna do the simple view.
So prior to tonight's meeting, there weren't any comments or edits to the 2025 work plan document. So earlier today, Jim, Alexis, and I jumped on a call and made some quick edits to
Sacrifice their lunch.
Yes. To try to mold this for what it could look like for 2025. And so we thought that would be a better approach rather than trying to wordsmith, have the entire ACES committee wordsmith this document, because we think that would probably take a really, really long time. But this is something that we can react to and say, yeah, we like that. No, we don't like that. So,
Do you want me to run down what we changed?
sure.
Honestly, 80% of it stayed the same. We did, on the, so on the beneficial electrification stuff, we added, promoting the town electrification rebates. We also, honestly, I think that was all we changed. I wish it was still in track changes because I could tell you exactly what we changed.
I can show you in track changes, it's just a little chaotic.
No, that's fine. Yeah, there you go. Okay, no, that's perfect.
That's easy.
Okay, so yeah, the first bullet's new. Promote new residential electrification rebates. Consider creating content or ways to share ACES members' electrification journeys and stories as a new way to approach this topic. We did some of that this year, sharing our stories. Do that again next year. Support grant opportunities for the town, vehicles and building electrification, and then yeah, you can read the rest of it. Pretty much that stayed the same. Last one we changed from Q2 to Q3 to all year. So,
And I just want to note, we removed Partners in Energy from here because we have graduated out of that program for now. So we completed our implementation for our beneficial electrification plan. There may be graduate support at some point in the future. But at this point, we will be very sad to lose them because they've been a wonderful partner. And then I did just want to make sure that everyone realized that those electrification rebates did stay in the budget. So we have $20,000 that'll be administered through Energy Smart. They're only residential rebates. We'll need to have a conversation probably in January, I guess. Many conversations in January, it sounds like, on, ACES feedback on structuring those. Probably we will follow largely what other communities have done, but if you have particular feedback, or things that you think that we should consider as part of that, obviously within, it will still be managed by Energy Smart, et cetera. So I can send out kind of those links, what other people have done, but I would love to have your feedback on that in January, and then we'd love to launch those relatively shortly after that and kind of get that going.
So any questions on BE before we move down to the waste topic? Questions, comments, feedback? Yes.
Great. This certainly doesn't have to be included, but I had talked to Alexis a while ago about how do you engage renters in electrification? And maybe that could even just be like explore what those options would be.
We've put that.
Your section for you.
Thank you. Never mind.
And the reason why we put it down there is because that is, I think, gonna be a common thread through all of our actions, so we gave it its own bullet point.
Great, love that. Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
But yes, we should talk about that in the context of the rebates, but we did call it out specifically. Based on the feedback.
Cool.
Yeah, good comment. Anything else?
Are we able to like focus on the bits and pieces that are really gonna impact our sustainability action plan goals, like, our targets? Because as you mentioned with our follow up, so are we able to kind of like pinpoint, okay, this particular area, we think this is going to take a sizable chunk out of our GHGs, is there something we can do to kind of address that? Yeah.
Well, those under the beneficial electric, the audits I think are key. We don't get enough people to do the audits. Even when we table and we talk to people about doing audits and I ask them, have you done an audit? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Do you want to do an audit? I'll think about it. So I think we are hitting the beginning foundational steps. You can't know what to do in your house until you get that energy on it. And unfortunately, our housing stock in Rock Creek is older, so they have different needs than the housing stock in downtown and the new rebuilds. So to your point, it's a great question, and I do think audits are one of the first things to give you data so you can make educated financial decisions on where you want to invest your money. And buildings are the #1 source of GHG emissions in our inventory. So I think it's not coincidence that it's first on here, whether you're starting in an audit, whether we're rebating people actually, doing that fuel switching and changing out natural gas appliances to electric appliances, especially as Excel makes that grid cleaner. I think that that's part of why, my work is focused there, and a lot of this ACES piece at least starts there. I'm glad you added that Google about getting the stories out, because when people see their neighbors doing it, they see it's doable and achievable. And that's your comment from last time. So we went through all the comments from last time, that brainstorm, and we tried to integrate them into existing bullets or add new sections if we needed to.
Did we put anything about carbon offsets in here?
No.
Only because I know that we discussed it previously about having a good kind of plan around carbon offsets as a transition.
We offset our municipal natural gas use.
Oh, yeah, but there are options to offset other things, but obviously that's not the end in mind. It's a transition lever.
And it's an educational lever to get people to talk about it and understand what it is, what offsets are.
Yeah, but offsets help you make progress towards your goals. So I'm just trying to think, maybe should we have a bit more of a think about how we use carbon offsets?
Sure.
Maybe.
I think that would be great if we had a bullet somewhere. I don't know where to put it, but I think the carbon offsets is.
As a committee.
Yeah.
Offsets, what will we?
We'd already recommend maybe some ideas of
where it could be best used or which projects
Which projects
would be good, which credits are high quality.
how individuals could do offsets. So there's a whole bunch of things we haven't tackled yet.
Do you want me to make this beneficial electrification, implementation and energy and then include offsets? Or do you want me to make it, do you think it
I think it
fits its
fits.
own section?
I think it fits well under there. We can track it easier. And every time you do decisions on upgrading your house, you're essentially making an offset calculation.
Could we use a more general term like decarbonization?
Yeah.
Isn't that covers all of it?
Yeah, and then we can still focus on offsets under there.
It's for offsets and decarbonization.
Well, no, the title of the section,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Beneficial electric.
Do you want me to call it, instead of energy, you want me to call it decarbonization?
Well, I think electrification is decarbonization.
This is our plan name though, it's beneficial electrification.
I think
So if we,
it should,
Oh, wait, I thought this is a subsection of our plan. I thought the plan was called the ACES work plan.
Oh, so I mean the actual like plan that we have as a town.
what do we call it?
Oh, you mean our,
Beneficial electrification.
well, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's called the, yeah, okay, yeah. Get the connection there. Okay, all right. Well, okay, yeah, beneficial electrification, implementation and decarbonization instead of energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Should I do energy, or you want it to be, sorry, you want it to be decarbonization?
Great. I felt like at one point, with the, like back on, your point about, you know, trying to eliminate scope one emissions. I felt like at one point when, when you had to do a renovation on your house, in order to get a permit from the codes department, you had to have an energy audit done. That was at least the case when I had my basement refinished 10 years ago. I had to turn in an energy audit report to the.
There's green points, so when you do, it triggers a certain size of renovation. Triggers something called green points, and you can pick the pathway that works best for you. That could include an energy audit. There's a whole list of.
But what about when someone wants to replace a water heater or a furnace, they have to pull a permit for that? Is there any prereqs required to do that?
That'd have to be a code change.
Yeah,
That'd have to be a code change then.
we talked about that, remember, we talked about how expensive it would be, so, and we know that the remodels are where the biggest bang is, but we focused on new builds because we knew the costs of remodels is gonna be huge.
I mean, unfortunately, most of them are done out of emergency and a failure.
Yeah.
And,
But I think we've got the conversation going, especially here, about being proactive on getting those heat pumps and
yeah,
because of your initiatives and the sessions we run. I don't know anything about the green points.
Excellent.
I would love to, learn more about the green points and stuff like that. So maybe we do an education piece to that.
But I don't know that that needs to be part of the work plan. That can be
No,
part of the key messages.
Exactly.
yeah.
any other comments on that section?
Does that work for you, Nikki, to have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys all jump down to waste.
Yeah.
So the theme of this one is, okay, pretty much progressing forward now that the town has approved the waste contract and all the good work that was done last year by ACES to make that happen. Now it's focused to education and community engagement. So all
Implementation.
and
Can I
implementation.
take this in there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Where
Now
are
you
we?
can see the-
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But you can see we kind of redlined most of it. So I'll read through it, see what you guys think.
Right, so this is the one we have in our sustainability action plan to enact the Eco Leader program. And I think this is where we move this up and put this in now because they will be our best ambassadors. Like Rachel Tittle, the one that emailed us asking about, she would be a potential Eco Leader. So I think those are our ambassadors on the ground to help their neighbors learn how to compost correctly.
Does this have a cost?
No,
Okay, so would you wanna say like help mobilize the Eco Leader Network to support?
and that's a direct item on our sustainability action plan.
That's probably an all year thing, right?
Yeah.
Any other comments on the waste collection?
It's good. And I'll, of course, be reporting out, we're still going back and forth with the public to get the finalized contracts. But I will report out when we've had a chance to sit down and, really identify, like, what does this look like for us? What is, they have a really great plan. That's part of why we're excited to partner with them. But more to come soon. The website should be updated within a week. And then I did send out a one pager. I've updated it a little bit. But we're starting to, get questions, people asking about it. So all of that will be up there shortly.
Yeah, the one page was good.
So the water stuff, most of it stayed the same, honestly. I think we added leverage water rebates in the first bullet.
Real quick question, was there, from trustee Shaw, is there any talk about raising the water rates?
So we did, so in the budget that we just adopted, I think it's last month, we did increase some of the water rates. I think we're still substantially below Louisville, Lafayette, we're basically below everybody else as a neighborhood. The perversity here is the water, the fewer people that use water increases the cost to the town as a whole. It's bizarro. So we're balancing out, like, trying to create the right incentives. And again, what we need to do, and when we have this meeting with Jim again, we need to figure out the high users. And it's a small number of folks in Rock Creek, because they've got a lot of land or whatever, and the HOA has, conflicting messages on xeriscaping. And I xeriscape 200 square feet. It's not easy. But, to try to do that, go through it all, it's not easy to say, we need a handful of people through this in addition to raising the rates. But the problem is, if we raise rates, people start using water, we gotta raise rates for everybody. So,
Yeah, tiered pricing.
Short question.
We do have tiered pricing.
Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, we definitely have tiered pricing. And the town has rolled out on a sort of ad hoc basis, smart meters. Yes, you can see the
Yeah.
water usage. So I've got a smart meter, and it's actually it's been eye-opening, because, when you get the alert to use 1,000 gallons of water yesterday, like, oh my God.
Mine detected a leak and I'm getting an irrigation guy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because, or next week,
Yeah.
but mine, that smart meter was one that's waiting to.
So we just,
People see how much they use on
Yeah.
a daily basis, as opposed to when the water bill shows up, you're like, yeah, 10,000 gallons, but like,
Right.
I ran my sprinklers for an hour, as 1,000 gallons of water, right? So that's behavior, because right now, the water bills, an extra $20, $30, people don't notice it because it's in the aggregate, but when you start getting the alert on the smart meter, and we just go and start knocking on the doors with folks that are the high water users, I think we can start driving the behavior we want.
yeah, and right now we round to the nearest thousand.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no.
Gallon. So you may remember last month I asked for ACES to support, a letter of support for our, water meter application. We submitted that yesterday. So fingers crossed, we'll receive that funding for smart water meters, so that everyone can be, connected to us, yeah.
I'm scared, right?
Has the town estimated the cost to change out all the meters?
We do, Brandon did have that.
Yeah.
I don't remember, it's not insane, it's like $200,000.
Their tax gonna help pay for that?
No, I think the water meter grants, like, it's like 1 point.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. Yeah.
Can the town apply for the resident?
They just
install
pilot
that have
with
installed
like.
water?
We are the water company, so,
Right.
On a replacement basis, that's a great idea, and for any new homes, we should be absolutely requiring that, that's, we're not doing that yet.
That's right.
We wanted to, but then the fire happened.
Yeah.
And then FEMA will only replace like for life, so unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity there either. But we are exploring that and actively applying for funding, because it's not significant in the cost, but that is a huge, the ability, for education, the ability for consumers to understand what water they're using, the ability to detect leaks early and not lose water that way. They would be a really big driver for that sort of thing. And Christine, who's one of our engineers, she went through and quantified all sorts of water savings.
Yeah, she's
Because she had to for the grant, with what water meters can do, and it's, not insignificant, so.
You should see how much pushback you get from people. They think, oh, it's another time, it's another electric meter, it's gonna kill me in reason.
So you put her hair and you make them warn it instead of pushing them.
Yeah, I mean, we did, ACES hosted a smart meter event this year for the Excel meters, so you're aware of some of the
So,
pushback.
yeah, we won't have Excel trying to.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Thank God.
No, just to use a 20
Yeah.
and say, here, put it out, when they're gone, and then that will drive the demand.
Well, I think, we've all tried to look at our Excel bill and figure out what the heck is going on, but this water dashboard is outstanding, right? You show that to people and it's,
Yeah.
I actually wanted it, and even if I pay less on a water basis or pay more, I still have a lot of visibility, because I can, like you said, in terms of remote leaks or things that happen. I think most people will want it, but we can't use Excel as a poster job right now.
So does the meter come with a shut off valve? So if you're on a trip and there's a catastrophic leak, you can.
You call your neighbor.
Shut off.
You call your neighbor.
One of those in our.
Yeah,
bring us back to the work.
Yeah.
But it's shut
So
off.
talk about this stuff.
We're coming up on.
Yeah, okay. So water pretty much stayed the same, and then we just kind of had some miscellaneous categories, of course, important ones, of course, not trying to blow them off, but equity, inclusion, we brought up the renters, some key messages, and then just some ongoing efforts. So I want you guys just scan all that, and see if you have any thoughts.
Do we have a number, is it 40% of Superior rents?
Correct.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Not insignificant.
So Sarah, I would love to know from you, did I capture what you were thinking in that section? And is there more that you were?
Yeah. No, I mean, I wish I had something more than like evaluate, but I think there's really a lot of work to do to figure out like, what does this look like?
Sure.
And I feel like learning, like I can ask I have old professors who work for Boulder County, and I can reach out to people there to just understand, like, do they have anything? What does it look like? What do you need as a baseline to be even able to start that conversation? So, no, I think that looks great.
And then we did change the key messages to kind of incorporate the communications plan, and kind of those pieces in there rather than developing them. So, outreach group in particular, I'm looking at you to see if we captured those.
Yeah, that's good.
correctly.
Do you all use rain barrels here? Yes,
Oh,
Can happen, yeah.
okay. I use mine religiously.
Not against the water rights.
No,
Yeah,
they
they
changed
changed that.
it.
Oh, really?
We get 2 50-gallon
Yeah.
rain barrels.
Okay.
We talked about, touring the water treatment plant. Once the new analyst came on board, is that still a possibility?
Yeah, I'm happy to set that up. Jim Widener, we've referenced a couple of times in this meeting. He's done some really cool things with, the GAC. It's like new technology at the plants. We've got our solar arrays by there. I would be happy to arrange for that, if ACES is interested in that.
I'd also recommend the wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah.
It's one of our biggest energy mods by far.
Yes.
And everybody's been trying to bring it down, it's easy.
Interesting.
Yeah, not for both. I would love to go there when I would say.
Wastewater treatment right next to
The food plan.
just kind of right, yeah, appreciate it.
Welcome.
So as far as next steps with our work plan, we need to vote on this tonight
Correct.
because this will need to be presented to the board meeting in January, and that board meeting happens before the ACES January meeting.
You'll be in a different seat.
Yes. So have folks had enough time to kind of
Yeah.
read through the work plan, digest it?
Yeah, thanks for taking up your lunch.
Yeah.
break.
Any other
Yeah, that's good. Should I
observations?
all the changes?
Just-
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of nodding heads.
Yeah.
Can I add to, I feel like our equity and inclusion bullet is maybe a tad limited, which I think is okay in terms of work plan, but is limited when we consider the scope of equity and inclusion. So maybe, multifamily residents, renters, and low-income individuals, something like that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, because we do consider that, and so this just
Mhm.
gives legitimacy to what our conversations have been.
Alexis, I would, in Superior.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's not a lot of housing for low income.
I say fixed income. You wanna say fixed income? Those are different.
That's
That's
good.
different stuff.
All right. So. Everybody's comfortable. Miles, do you have any thoughts
No,
at this
no,
point?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I've typed up a few times. People are already including what I wanted to include, so we're good.
Okay. So do we have a motion to adopt our 2025 work plan?
I move to adopt the 2025 work plan.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right. It's Michelle and Ethan show tonight. All right. So all those in favor of approving the ACES 2025 work plan, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, congratulations. We have a work plan for 2025. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left in our time here, and the added item was the budgets. And I'll turn it over to Alexis to give us an update on where we stand with our spending.
So right before this meeting, thank you for letting me add this. Since we don't have a December meeting, I just didn't want to lose this chance for ACES to consider if there was anything else they want to spend budget on this year. As you all can see, you've spent about half, almost exactly, of your budget. You have a $5,000 budget. You've spent just over $2,500 on the litter kits, those outreach easels, the Chili Fest volunteers, which was wonderful.
Real quick question on that. We had 11 show up. I gave Michaela back $100 gift card. Do you know what happened to that $100?
She hasn't.
Okay, so.
I think I just paid her for it because that's
Just
what I
paid
said
right.
that we would.
Could use it.
Yeah, so she still has it. We didn't lose it.
I know.
The gift wrap that Michelle will be giving out, the battery kits. So all that stuff is really wonderful. We do still have reusable bags for next year. We do still have utensil kits. One thing I thought ACES might want to consider is, I've not forgotten about the digital banners. I'm looking at you.
I've got it.
Oh. Because it may not cover, so I talked to Michaela, she was very excited about the idea for events
Okay.
Great.
and that potential, but I know that you were looking at something that potentially are more expensive.
Yes, so I think we could use an extra like $1,000.
It was like
1,500. So yeah, it's about 3,500, the one we were looking at. But I think the task from the committee was to go away and kind of think about what we could use it for and kind of what sort of messages. So just to quickly update everyone. So obviously with the digital banner, we've got video and audio. So for example, if we're at a booth and we're talking about composting or whatever, we have supporting YouTube videos, material to support that. So that's really great. It's an additional feature. We can also digitalize the spinning wheel. So everyone's got a spinning wheel.
Yeah.
We can do that on the digital banner.
Wow.
So we'd probably be the only ones that like leveled up. And then obviously, you know, there's screens that can come up, something can disappear, something else can come up, so we can have multiple QR codes. It would reduce printing. We could integrate it into some of the engagement kind of activities that we have, you know, at events like treasure hunt, etc. So those were the sorts of ideas. But there was one issue because we found, and Lisa pointed it out, we found a solar events digital banner, which was on the list that I sent you. Really cool, but it's heavy. It's real heavy.
40 pounds.
Oh my God. 120, I thought. It was like 60 kilos.
So we read I think there was like 1 or 2 reviews, and the issue was that it was heavy.
Yeah. So I couldn't lift it in my car, like if you.
No, and
I'm
gonna have to have that.
It would be something you'd have to have on wheels that
You
you
need
just
to
put.
put a smaller version of that,
Yeah.
maybe a tabletop one.
So I searched a lot, and this would seem to be the only company that kind of catered to what we wanted, but I guess we might have to go away and do a little bit of extra research just to triple check. Because if there's no other option, then this would be our option.
That's too.
And it would, I mean, you would have to have some sort of way to convey that
Exactly.
around us, because that's really, really.
I mean, it's not real, it's weight it. it's got handle.
But still, you gotta get in and out of the car.
It would gear itself to be a permanent thing
Yeah.
in like the
Yeah.
downtown Superior area or in this area. You would not want to move it. When we got into the details and we looked at that, we're like, oh, wait a minute.
Given the number of events that we have and the different people that work the events, we need something that's pretty mobile and pretty easy to. lift.
So I think then allow us a little bit more time to go away and check this, and come back and see if there are any other options. I know, when do we have to spend money by?
The end of the year, so that's why we want to talk about the budget now, because if you wanted to allocate it towards any swag or an extra amount for if there's different options.
Is this money gone if it's not spent by the end of the year?
Correct,
Yes.
Would it be
Alexis?
allowed as a
Yeah.
permanent installation here, and then if you're able to move it to a thing, or we could.
Not at
put it
the
down?
community center, but they're
Yeah.
open to doing it at civic space. The issue with that is if it's at civic space, it wouldn't be just sustainability programming and the customization of what goes on there. There's a significant staff lift, I guess, to change out what happens on the community center screens. And so that was a concern. I think that, we could talk about what that could look like as a permanent thing elsewhere, because especially civic space doesn't have a lot of that yet, but it may not be exactly what ACES was envisioning.
We don't mind sharing it.
Hold on, so
Yeah.
Miles has his hand raised.
Sorry, yeah, I know we're talking about digital banner. Are we talking about the solar one too, or just the digital banner right now? I just got a little lost on that.
No, you can get lots of different types of digital banner, but the one
Right.
the specific one we're looking at is a solar powered one. You can get ones that you plug in, but this is a solar
Right.
powered.
Right, but we're saying that one's too heavy to move around and we need to, I feel like the scope is getting really big on this digital banner piece, and I'm a little bit worried that the optics of having something so like that big and that expensive could not look great for our sustainability efforts. I'm wondering if we can get a really good digital banner that is plug-in that we can utilize, and then use the excess funds that we have to support volunteerism next year, get some gift cards ahead of time, if that's allowed. I don't know if it's allowed, Alexis. But I'm worried that if we got a lot of pushback when the town got Teslas, for example. I know this isn't a Tesla, but there was a lot of like, why did the town do that? That was exuberant spending. We could have gotten leaves. Like, it's gaudy a little bit. So I just worry about it being a little too big. That's all.
Those are great points. I think the size scared us, and we physically cannot manage that size. So if there is no other one, if we need to build one tonight, we looked at, there was a smaller one, but it didn't have the features we liked.
I don't think
The
there's another
plug-in
one.
ones are same.
No, they're actually smaller. So if we got a smaller one, but the plug-in one, we would have to run power at Chili Fest and things like that. We don't have.
May not work, but I will say Michaela's suggestion for, if this wasn't our lunch and things, what we could use it for too is we may have to mix and match zero waste options at events next year. It's possible, right? Our world may or may not support some of the things, they've had a lot of changes. We talked about maybe having scraps, like we'll talk about all this next time, but especially if we're changing it event to event, there could be value in a more simple digital display, but that explains like what the zero waste options are. So I don't know if I haven't looked as much as you all have at the interfaces.
Maybe
And not
from
too complicated.
simplicity standpoint, for spending the remaining $2,500, we stock up on supplies that we might be low on now, and we use the 2025 budget for considering the digital banner.
So we have $3,000 in sustainability operating budget this year that will go away. That was for the digital banner, if we don't use it.
Gotcha.
Sorry, just to clarify.
Could we buy the gift cards? Could we say though it's for volunteers and buy the gift cards?
Yes, so for the ACES budget, for this 2,500,
Yeah.
that's a separate conversation. I don't see any reason why you couldn't make a motion to purchase gift cards this year that we could use.
I
for
see the
volunteer
3,000 is under your budget. Okay.
That's what I would do.
Here's a small one. Oh, that's just a moment.
Hey, did you say we can't buy carbon offsets with our money?
For ACES?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we talked about ACES.
I feel like I asked that question before and I thought the short answer was no.
Well, you can all calculate our mileage, like coming from our house to
Yeah.
the meeting and back. How many meetings you had during the year,
Yeah.
how many people, quantify that. Is the offsets.
And the energy to condition this room and turn on the lights.
Well, it depends how granular you wanna go into it, but.
And that would be a relatively small offset amount.
Yeah.
So I do worry, like, if we were gonna do that, bundling it with our larger stuff in some ways would make more sense, because I don't think we're gonna get like the type of projects that would be available for such a small.
What's the next one up, or the one you gave us those 4 of the digital banners,
Yeah,
the one that was before that,
So
was that?
just to be clear, we've got 2 buckets of money that we have to spend. We've got $3,000 that the town board approved specifically for the digital banner that has to be spent by the end of the year. And we have roughly $2,500 in our ACES specific budget that has to get spent before the end of the year.
So I guess mine was proposed for the digital banners.
so the option, I said it's 4 options.
Yeah.
I think, and the first 3 were plug-in. And they were based on the assumption that it would live in the community centre. So they're less mobile, have wheels, but have the same functionalities, you know, smart CMS, you know, some of them are touchscreen too. And they fit within our budget. But the issue, I think, because we discussed last time, is that the usage, we would want it for events, and it can't really live here because the responsibilities, and so we have options. But it just doesn't suit our usage, right? I mean, if I had like a day, I could go and research a bit more and then come back to the committee before the end of the month. That's an option. If you know, and if I can't find anything, then we decide to, but I guess we need to make a decision.
The banners don't need to be just, you can email me, that's part of my budget. So if you can fit it within that $3,000, you and I can work together, and we actually don't need ACES, that budget's already approved. But I wanted to talk about all the things in the context of this 2,500, because that vote has to happen
Oh, yeah.
this evening with ACES, if you want to spend any of that.
Alexis, sorry, go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I was only gonna say with the digital banner, I do actually recall we talked about this as part of the budget, because we did think about it being a stationary item in the community center. Like, I think if the scope is correct to something that's portable, that's gonna make it a lot harder to find anything that works. But I do specifically recall all the great stuff that ACES was doing, how we communicate that out. People are coming to the community center, let's give them an interface, give them, you know, something that they can see and then learn more, and then, you know, pique some more questions as they're coming and going. But if it's gonna be portable, that's a little bit different than what we were imagining at the time, but I think if it stays in this building, I think it should at least meet, you know, I mean, 100,000 pounds, you know, we get plenty of space.
Yeah, and I think just talking to Karen, who runs this facility, she was suggesting civic space just because of the amount of screens. But the content wouldn't be as customizable, it'd be something more like the website, we could put the dashboard on, you know, we can have some of those pieces rotate through, but the customization would be more difficult, like, you know, I don't think we had a chance to have that in-depth conversation around what that looks like. So,
I mean,
There is a battery operated one that's 88 pounds from that same company.
Can you pull the picture?
It's not, yeah, if you,
I know what I'm talking.
if you,
So,
there's an email that Nikki sent that has all the 4 options, if you can pull that up.
I can do it again.
Yeah, I think we'd seen a dashboard that really had set up, it's like, how do you get people to see that? And the banner was sort of a way that people can see this and go home.
It's really cool. There are so many things that we could do, and you could take it for an event, but the interactiveness of it, we really liked. And as we gain knowledge and use for messaging, we figured we could definitely go into it.
Is it too much if the committee is just responsible for the content on it, rather than giving it to anyone else? It's just purely us as a committee that decide what goes on it and manages it.
I mean, it's a town asset, and so it has to follow our town communications protocols, and also there's like accessibility requirements now. And so it has to be, unfortunately, like more tightly controlled. So I think if you feel like we can continue to live within that $3,000, I think, you know, that we can have that conversation offline, but I do maybe want to circle back to that 2,500.
Alexis?
To see, yes.
Can I just say, can we just motion that whatever total amount it costs for the final banner that is decided between Nikki and yourself, that if you need additional funds from the 2,500, that we vote that you should take it, and whatever's left over to be used for gift cards, period. Is that a motion I can make? I'm just trying to wrap up the conversation, because I think we just keep going in circles right now.
Yeah,
So-
but at the events, I know that the open space committee, at the one I went to and tabled, they had the giveaway and like we're having for the two winter events, and I think that brings more people.
So we'll have 5,000 next year in January.
And we
Oh,
have
yeah.
giveaways, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So Miles has put a motion forward to have Nikki and Alexis figure out the $3,000 that's already budgeted, the board approved, and that whatever the over of 3,000 is, the remaining come out of the remaining ACES budget, and then whatever's left over from that, we use to purchase gift cards for our 2025 things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is there a second?
I second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, John missed this. Any opposed? I guess John's an abstention since he had to step out. So that motion passes. Congratulations. And that wraps up our agenda. So, thank you all again.
Thank
Since
you,
this is our
Mike.
last
Thank you.
meeting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your commitment to sustainability and.
We look forward to
Yes.
supporting sustainability while on the.
Thank you.
Amazing.
No flip flopping, Mike.
Drill, baby, drill.
Oh, I'll have that motion to adjourn before you.
Oh, yes.
Something else over there.
So Matt, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Great